Greetings. In this video, I address some of the aspects related to the victim in psychological profiling, and some of this material comes out of Chapter 15 in your textbook. I have added conducting a psychological and sociological autopsy on a victim in addition to the material that is in your textbook. First, I would like to point out that unfortunately, the victim is often neglected in the research on criminal profiling. There's a great emphasis on the perpetrator, but very little on the victim. And the victim is extremely important to study so we can understand a lot of the aspects of the perpetrator psychology and behaviors, and also think about ways that we could come up with to preventing victimization from occurring in the first place. In your textbook, your authors talk about elements of victim profiling, which of course become part of the psychological autopsy, and that's what I'd like to get right into. And I'm basing a lot of this work on T.J. Young's work, Procedures and Problems in Conducting a Psychological Autopsy, from the International Journal of Offender Therapy and Comparative Criminology, volume 36, back in 1992. And in order to update this, simply what we would need to add would be the technological enhancements and revolutionary products that we have seen since that time period. The internet, GPS devices, more sophisticated software, and the like. And so part of the psychological autopsy would involve conducting a thorough assessment of a person's use of technology. And we'll get into that during the towards the end of the video. According to Young, basically psychological autopsy involves recreating the personality and lifestyle of the deceased, the victim, and the circumstances surrounding the death. I think that some of this information can be very helpful in cases of missing persons as well. And so certainly we could use a lot of our profiling information material in addressing missing persons. It's extremely important to interview family and friends thoroughly and have an ongoing interaction and interview relationship with them as any investigation is conducted. So in addition to interviewing family and friends, we would also want to analyze public records and documents, and also cross-check our sources. We also want to specify the mode of death. Was it natural, accidental, suicide, or homicide, or is it undetermined? And some of the information that goes into conducting and writing up the psychological autopsy, for example, would be looking at the victim's life, history, and more recent life events. So we want to identify as much information as possible. We want to see if there's any drug or alcohol history. If we suspect suicide, was there a suicide note or certain writings that were left that would give us some indicators of what had occurred? We could take a close look at the books that they owned, and especially the books that they recently read. We can look at their more recent interpersonal relationships and friendships, their marital relationships, their recent moods, particular stressors that may have been in their environment. We could also look at their medical history and recent mental health history. And are there any mental health or psychological reports that may be useful? Are there any recent medical laboratory studies to indicate that there were certain medical conditions that may be relevant to the case? And certainly I autopsy report may be relevant to give us some of the details of what was found in terms of pathology or substances in the victim's body. We also can look at a motive assessment and trying to reconstruct the events that led up to the death, or for that matter, the disappearance, and to also try to assess changes in life patterns that may have occurred around the time period of the disappearance or the death, and look at other factors related to their history, their developmental history, their employment history, their family history, and educational history. If there were any criminal related or juvenile related reports. But please remember that psychological autopsy variables are simply guides. They do not determine what happened, but they guide us in trying to put together a very complex array of materials. And of course, I wouldn't say that this is a standardized autopsy. In the case of the autopsies that may be conducted at the coroner's office, which may be very standardized and very hard scientific based. Also, to do the psychological autopsy, we'd also need to have very good interviewing skills. And also, we need to recognize that everyone has a stake in the outcome, so that's relevant and important as well. In addition, what I would add is we need to be very sophisticated in analyzing someone's cyber life. And that can lead to a lot of clues that may be missed by the other variables and missed during interviews. So in this sense, what we would like to do is to get as much information we can about their cyber life. Was it a lot different than their regular everyday physical life that they led? And so you want to be able to see if they were networked or connected to any groups or clubs or certain individuals, exchanges of emails, a thorough forensic investigation of their computer to look at emails, to look at websites they visited, to look at interests, to look at bookmarks, to look at downloads, and so on. Also, a full assessment of their cell phone history, and also any other technological devices that may be used. Their GPS devices may be very helpful. Certainly, looking at history of geographical travel patterns. There's a host of technologically relevant variables that may be helpful, as well, as we have seen in many cases involving people that were victimized, and part of that victimization involved the use of technology or the internet or a computer to connect victim and perpetrator. So we try to put this all together in a coherent theme. And this wraps up this video. Thank you.